It's Rachel Klein. I'm watching another movie of the week, and the movie this week was Before Midnight from 2013. So if you haven't watched it, watch it now. If you're new here, I'm doing like a movie every week. You guys comment below your thoughts at the end of every video. I see the movie for next week. And in 2024, we're doing franchises and reviews. So we're doing the Before trilogy to start off with. And so we did Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and now Before Midnight. So if you haven't watched the Before Sunrise and Before Sunset videos, watch that now first before Midnight. So this is the last movie in the trilogy, and it's kind of crazy because it was like Before Sunset was 9 years after Before Sunrise, and now Before Midnight is 9 years after Before Sunset. Yes. The before and the after is getting me confused. So we were in Vienna, then we were in France, and now we're in Greece. And so I really wondered, like, when they found out there was going to be a third movie, like what their thoughts were, because, you know, the first movie is obviously when they met, the second movie is like when they re-met, and so what is this third movie about? What is it? And we start where like they're in the airport and he's like saying goodbye to his son, and you kind of realize it's his son, but you're like, why are they in Greece? Like, I think it's obvious that they're in Greece, but you're like, what about him and Celine? Like, what is up? Then there are like some contact clues, you can kind of figure it out, and then you see like, then he leaves the airport, and in the car it's her, and they're together, and you see that they have two twin girls, and then you have this like long scene with them in the car and they're talking, in which the scene is so long and they must have rehearsed it, and so it's kind of this entire trilogy. You pick up context clues from how they're talking. You have to like really be engaged. You can't be looking at your phone because you'll miss things. And so it's really engaging. They're talking, and it's like natural because they don't say everything once. Like, there's no narration in any of these movies where it's like, this is where we are, fast forward 9 years later. You really have to like pick it up from what they're talking. Now, this movie is very different than all the other movies because really, like, the first one, as I said, like, it's when they first meet. The second one is meeting again after 9 years, but it's like in those moments. And so this is like them 9 years later being together, which you kind of pick up on, and so it's very different. And so it's kind of like those had to be like the first two movies, so why was it this specific day that we see the third movie? Like, I think they wanted it to be 9 years later to keep with that theme, but like, why is it this day? Why is it this day? Like, what is important about this day necessarily? We don't have like that time sensitive thing again. Like, we have them, I think they're leaving Greece, I don't know if it's the next day or the day after, so there's a little bit time sensitive, and they have this hotel room that they're going to, but it's like, and then this movie is also different because in the last two movies it's like them talking, but this one you had like other people talking. They were with these other people, and so you get like this mixture of like how they present and talk and like interact with like other people when it's not really themselves. Obviously in the other two movies you see them like have conversations once in a while with someone else, but this one it was like really like they were having conversations, and there were scenes where, you know, he was talking to these guys and she was like talking to the girls without each other. So it did have a different appeal, this movie. And again, like, why did they pick this day? Like, we're gonna keep going into it. Now, I was looking at Letterboxd reviews because obviously I've seen this movie before and whatever, but I always love like rereading Letterboxd reviews when I'm rewatching a movie. And so I guess Ethan Hawke once said this, like, the first movie is what could be, the second movie is what should have been, and the third movie is what is. And they talked about in the second movie, like, if they ended up together, like, you know, all this stuff, like, we would become tired of each other, like, we would like pick on each other's mannerisms and stuff. And so you see that in this movie. You see, even with like the car scene at the beginning, like, they're already like having a little bit disagreements about like life and like real life things. Something that like in the second movie, like, he talked about like his worst fear was like losing his son and not being around with seeing his son like grow up, and like that's something he's dealing with in the third movie, is that his son lives in America and he doesn't. And so it's something where they like lived in America for a while, and then they ended up having twins, and so they moved back to France, and they've been in France ever since, but it's like he's not with his son, and so that's something they argue about. It's hard to like, I feel like, talk about all these different things, but yeah, it's like interesting. And they still have like this like great, when they have those scenes like in the car, and then when they're walking to the hotel, you see this like the way they talk and their chemistry. It's still very much alive at how they see each other and everything. And it's something too where like still like he was like or she was like, I know everything about you, or he was like, I know everything about you, but they still were like, right away, like then she starts talking about the story that he never heard of, so they're still discovering new things about each other. We also learned that they never got married. They're like together, but they never got married. And that's something in the fight at the end, like he's saying like, I'm committed to you, I'm committed to you. But yeah, they have this like really big fight scene at the end, which we don't see in the other two movies, because it's like when you meet for someone for the first time or see them for the second time after 9 years, you're not gonna like fight about things. And so it's like they're fighting about all these like different elements in their life, and you're like, it's this thing that Celine also said, where like the children, they see movies and it's supposed to be like ends in marriage, and they're wondering, well, we're not married, or like asking questions about their wedding or whatever. It's so true. In like all these like romance movies, you know, you just see the people get married and end up together, and they're just happy, and you don't see like the rest of it, because obviously there's gonna be problems. It's real life, and that's what this movie shows. I mean, this first and second movie, they kind of like left in like happy endings where you're like kind of assume that are good, but you don't really see it. And so then, you know, this is the third movie where you kind of see like they've been together, like yay, like we got as an audience what they want, but they have problems. They have major problems. And it's kind of the same thing where like he had this like same fears in his first marriage, where he was like so unhappy, but he like didn't want to leave because of like life and everything, and he left her because he was ended up being with Celine. But it kind of seems like with him and Celine, he has like not exactly the same problems, but he have a lot of problems as well, but he doesn't want to leave because it's like the life they have and everything. And it's like, it's not like I don't know, it's like, it's so hard, because it's like they have these problems, but how do they fix these problems? Like some of these problems are unfixable. So do they stay in this commitment to each other and just be unhappy, or do they move on? And so it's this thing where it's like at the end, like it seems like they're so unhappy, like they're not gonna make it. But then he was like, this is real, this is what life is, like, you know, what like, and then they end up like seeming on like a pleasant note, but it's still like they have all these problems and they're not being addressed, they're not being fixed, and it's just like we don't know. Like that's the thing, is you just leave with this ending where you're like, still don't know, are they happy together? We don't see them dying next to each other, so we don't know. That's the whole thing, is like they could one day in the future, you know, break up, maybe when their daughters are older, who knows? And it's like, it's hard, and it's like it struggles, and it's like it doesn't leave with a happy ending. And that's like the point, is like this is like real, and this is like, it like hurts so badly, and like this movie hurts, but it's also important. I feel like this movie is important, even though it feels so different than the other two movies. It is important to have this movie and everything. But that's why it's like, can there be a fourth movie? Because what the fourth movie is them splitting up, like it just doesn't make sense. And I know it's something they were talking about, having a fourth movie, but then the fourth movie, if it was 9 years later, it would have been 2022, and I don't think they would have been able to because of the pandemic and stuff. But I feel like in the end, like even though it's like, oh my god, I would love a fourth movie, I feel like a fourth movie wouldn't make sense, because what would it be about? And I feel like they were able to say everything they needed to say and get the message across in these three movies. And so at this point, you really can't make a fourth movie. But in the end, it's like a really good trilogy, and I love like movies that, you know, feel real, and don't just like have a happy like marriage and kids ending and like life is happy, because that's not real life is. And I think this movie shows like what it really is, and like it's so great to learn from. And so I like movies like this. I like movies like this. Probably forgetting a lot of other things, so please comment below, But I hope this is your first time watching the trilogy, you learned a lot of things and you like it. I always love rewatching these movies. I can't just like rewatch the first one. I rewatch the first one, I'm like, okay, now I gotta rewatch the second one. Okay, now I gotta rewatch the third one. So I'm not actually sure when I'm gonna probably rewatch this trilogy next, at least like a year. Hopefully I don't watch it again in like a month. But anyway, thank you guys for watching this. And so then the next reboot and franchise, so we're actually going to do The Room from 2003, and then to do Disaster Artist after that, which the Disaster Artist is kind of a movie about the making of The Room. And anyway, so yeah, if you've never watched The Room before or heard it, you're in for a treat. So comment your thoughts below about Before Midnight and overall the Before trilogy. Comment below, and then watch The Room from 2003 for next week. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and bye.